The lights inside the studio of The View were bright, sharp, and unrelenting. The cameras rolled smoothly, their red dots glowing. Outside, millions of Americans were already tuned in, expecting a normal morning episode with celebrity guests and political banter. But inside the studio, something else was happening. Meghan Markle sat calmly at the edge of the long table. She wore a beige blazer, soft waves in her hair, and the practiced smile of someone used to facing cameras that love her one day and turn on her the next. She was there to promote her foundation's new global mental health initiative. Her recent Netflix special with Prince Harry had caused waves. Some praised it, others mocked it. The press called it emotional manipulation. Meghan called it survival. 2 chairs down sat Angelina Jolie, dressed in a minimalist black pantsuit. She was poised and still. Her presence was quiet but powerful. She had flown in from Geneva the night before, where she had addressed a UN forum on refugee displacement. Unlike Meghan, Jolie wasn't there to promote anything. She was invited. For contrast, the producers of The View knew exactly what they were doing. Joy Behar opened with warm questions. Meghan, it's been quite a year. A Netflix series, a new foundation focus, and now this global campaign. How are you holding up? Again? Answered with grace. It's been a time of deep reflection. What Harry and I went through, it wasn't just personal. It was political, emotional, and psychological. We realized millions of people suffer silently. That's why we're launching Project Grounded, a global initiative to help marginalized voices speak openly about trauma. Applause followed. She smiled. She had rehearsed this. But then Whoopi Goldberg turned slightly toward Angelina. Angelina, you've worked in war zones. You've been a UN special envoy. What do you think about celebrity involvement in mental health and humanitarian work? Angelina's expression didn't change. She waited 2 seconds before answering. I think it depends on intention and experience. A quiet tension dropped into the room. Could you explain? Joy asked, smiling carefully. Angelina looked directly at Meghan. Many people enter this space because they believe it's glamorous to be part of global causes. But I've seen too many turn human pain into brand strategy. Meghan's smile didn't falter, but her fingers tensed slightly on the table. I understand that critique, Meghan said, voice calm. But I think it's unfair to judge someone's path to service. Prince Harry and I were invited to confidential briefings at the UN years ago. We've been involved in this space longer than people think. Angelina blinked once. Then she leaned forward slightly, just enough. You were given access, she said, her voice low but clear. You didn't earn insight. The words hung in the air. The room fell still. Cameras zoomed in. The live audience froze. For a few seconds, no one breathed. Even Joy Behar looked stunned. Wow, she whispered into her mic, not meaning to. Meghan's eyes narrowed just a bit. Her voice remained soft. Access doesn't mean ignorance, okay? And some of us learn fast when the world forces us to. The air crackled. Whoopi tried to shift the moment. Okay, let's step back. Obviously, both of you are involved in heavy, important work. Maybe we can focus on what unites your efforts, but the segment had already taken a turn. Online, clips of the moment were being screen recorded in real time. Social media exploded within minutes. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. People were replaying Jolie's line. You didn't earn insight. Some called it savage. Others called it necessary. Inside the control booth, one of the segment producers cursed under his breath. This wasn't supposed to go this far. We wanted friction, not fire. In the green room, Meghan's assistant clutched her phone. The text messages were already pouring in. BBC, would Meghan like to clarify her comment on unbriefings? CNN, is there a statement from Archewell regarding Angelina's accusation? Sky News, what did Angelina mean by access versus insight? Royal insiders suggesting deeper history. Back on set, Meghan's body shifted ever so slightly in her chair. The smile was gone. She stared straight ahead. "I think there's a misconception," she said. "Just because I didn't grow up in diplomatic circles doesn't mean I can't understand geopolitics. Trauma and injustice don't require approval to recognize." Angelina's response came with a quiet, unsettling precision. And recognizing pain is not the same as living in it. The live feed continued. The camera zoomed in on both faces. Now locked in a silent standoff, Joy tapped her cue card nervously. Whoopee! Looked toward the floor director. They still had 4 minutes left in the segment. The audience remained silent. Even the studio crew was frozen. It wasn't just a clash of opinions. It was something deeper. Two women, both shaped by fame, war, monarchy, motherhood, battling over who had the right to speak for the voiceless. After the segment ended, the hosts cut to commercial early. As Meghan walked off stage, she passed Angelina without a glance. Behind her, a floor manager picked up a folder Meghan had left behind. Inside, it was a briefing paper. Top corner, classified UN Protocol Summary -2017 session stamped in red. Eyes only, Markle Harry, the producer, held it for a long second before slipping it into his jacket. Backstage, Angelina's phone vibrated. A single message from a private Swiss number. She found the file. "We may need to move." And outside the studio, hundreds of phones buzzed at once. The clip had already gone viral. What was supposed to be a soft morning interview had turned into the spark of something global. Neither woman knew it yet, but the view had just become the battlefield for a war far beyond the studio walls. The moment the segment ended, the backstage hallway was chaos. Crew members rushed to their next tasks, but whispers traveled faster. Then footsteps. Meghan walked briskly toward her dressing room, her assistant trailing behind. Holding up a phone with the screen lit. "You're already trending," the assistant said, breathless. #UDIDN single quotes to earn insight is blowing up. CNN, BBC, Political calling. Some want statements. Others want to book you for follow-ups. Meghan didn't answer. Her jaw was tight, eyes locked ahead. The cameras were off, but she knew this wasn't over. It had only begun. Inside her private room, she shut the door behind her, tossed her clutch onto the table, and sat. Her reflection in the mirror looked tired but focused. Not angry yet. What did she mean by that line? The assistant asked carefully. Was it ... personal? Meghan leaned back in her chair. "It was targeted," she said. "Skay wanted to remind me of something I'm not supposed to talk about." A pause. Then, the UN briefings. Worse. Meghan opened her tablet and unlocked a hidden folder titled Crimson Circle. A map appeared. Dots marked Geneva, Nairobi, London. And one flashing red dot over a nondescript building in The Hague. Angelina had once worked with a covert global task force tied to post-conflict media strategy, unofficial, undocumented, and above even most unreporting structures. Meghan and Harry had stumbled into one of its legacy projects. During a trip to Nairobi in 2019, what they found there wasn't just humanitarian records. It was data on how media coverage had been quietly shaped for over a decade. Emotional warfare, some called it. Manufactured empathy. And now Angelina was guarding that secret. Back at the studio, Angelina remained in her chair after the cameras. Her team stayed quiet, not daring to speak until she stood. "I want the next interview pulled," she said flatly. "And tell Geneva, the Markle archive is active." One of her aides went pale. She ... accessed it. Or someone gave it to her. Angelina grabbed her coat and exited through the back hallway. She didn't like public exits on days like this. Too many eyes. Too many guesses. Meanwhile, on a late-night CNN panel in New York, the clip was already being dissected. Well, it was uncomfortable, said the host. But let's be real. There's history here. Jolie and Markle operate in the same humanitarian space, but Jolie has decades of experience on the ground. Meghan's critics say she's all cameras and no scars. Another analyst cut in. But if you dig, Meghan's involvement goes deeper than people think. She's worked with whistleblowers. She's hinted at intelligence briefings. Jolie may have opened a door she won't be able to close. Elsewhere, the story took stranger turns. A Dutch journalist known for leaks tweeted, "People forget Meghan's 2019 Nairobi trip ended with a restricted flight detour. You don't get that unless someone thinks you saw something." At the same time, a short clip from a 2020 podcast resurfaced where Meghan, in a rare off-script moment, said, "There were things we weren't supposed to see. But once we did, silence wasn't an option." By midnight, social media was boiling. Articles exploded across Europe and the US. A Guardian op headlined, "Jolie versus Markle. A feminist clash or a fight over global power." Inside Meghan's apartment, the screen buzzed with a new message. Unknown sender. They're going to spin you into irrelevance. They'll say you're bitter, emotional, unstable. Don't fall into their script. The Geneva files follow them. The message vanished 5 seconds later. Meghan stared at the screen, her hands shaking now not from fear, but something deeper. Recognition. She knew who had sent it. A year earlier, she had met a whistleblower, someone who once coordinated with the UN on media emotional response testing. He vanished after that meeting. Now it seemed he was watching again. The Geneva files. Rain tapped against the windows of the Eurostar as it sped beneath the English Channel. Meghan sat quietly in a private cabin, her coat folded beside her, a pair of reading glasses balanced on her nose. On the table lay a slim binder with no markings, just a worn corner and faint creases, as if it had been opened too many times under stress. Across from her, Paul Riviere, the Belgian security analyst she had contacted, studied a thin laptop screen with lines of coded text scrolling rapidly. He didn't look up as he spoke. "They'll know you're in Brussels within the hour." "I know," Meghan said. "That's why we're not staying." He finally looked at her. "Then you understand this doesn't end in headlines. If you open Halo Glass, you're opening a diplomatic nightmare." Meghan leaned forward, her voice low and steady. "They already turned me into a punchline. Now they want to erase the part where I was right. I'm done playing by their scripts." The binder on the table held classified documents from the Geneva Archive, transcripts from 2015 and 2016, when Angelina Jolie had been involved in a shadow initiative to manage global emotional sentiment during refugee crises. The name Halo Glass appeared only 4 times, always in footnotes. The language was vague. Sustained narrative deployment, emotional credibility anchors, soft state influence partnerships. But the implications were chilling. Governments, media companies, and high-profile humanitarian figures had worked together to shape how the public responded to global suffering, not just with facts, but with carefully chosen emotional triggers, images, words, even tears. And somewhere in those pages, Meghan had seen her own name. She closed the binder and looked out the window. The train was entering France. In less than an hour, they'd arrive in Brussels and take a car straight to The Hague. She wasn't sure what would happen after that. Meanwhile, in Geneva, Angelina stood before a podium at the Global Humanitarian Law Summit. She was scheduled to speak on borderless empathy and global justice. Cameras flashed. She looked composed, but her team was tense. "You've been requested for a closed-door debrief," whispered her aide, slipping her a note. "Dutch intelligence. Hague." She read it quickly. Her expression didn't change. "Meghan?" she asked quietly. "They didn't say, but yes, it's about that." Angelina folded the note. "Then the game is over." Back in New York, The View was in crisis mode. Ratings had exploded since the Markle-Jolie confrontation. Every network wanted a piece. But behind the scenes, producers were receiving strange calls: senators' aides, international press liaisons, even a discreet contact from the Department of State. Joy Behar had just finished a call with ABC's executive director. "They're telling us to kill this segment replay," she muttered to Whoopi. "All of it. Pull the archives. No reruns, no clips." Whoopi raised an eyebrow. "Too late. The internet's faster than they are." Joy looked nervous. "There. Saying national interest, diplomatic stability. Since when does The View have that kind of weight?" As the show's crew wiped their digital archives, a BBC investigation quietly went live online. It was written by a reporter who had spent the last 4 years tracking Haloglass after being tipped off by a retired UN official. Headline: "The Emotional Empire: Inside the Secret Program That Used Celebrities to Shape Global Grief." Report named Angelina Jolie, and it named Meghan Markle as a planned disruptive counterpoint, designed to add tension to the system if trust wavered in the primary assets. By evening, it had been read by over 8 million people. At The Hague, security cleared Meghan's car through a side entrance. Her credentials, provided by Paul's contacts, passed inspection faster than expected. Inside the gray stone building, she was escorted through narrow hallways into a silent room marked "Archive, Review Restricted." A diplomat in a dark suit greeted her. "We were told you have a request," he said without emotion. "Like you?" Handed over a sealed document with a temporary warrant from a Belgian oversight committee. "I need access to the Haloglass records," she said. "Full session logs, including media simulations from 2013 through 2017. The man didn't blink. "Do you understand what that request implies?" "I do," she said. "And I know what happens if I walk away now." As the door closed behind her, a red light blinked above it. "Review session in progress." Crosstown, Angelina entered a separate building, quiet, secure, and even more fortified. She had been summoned, but not told why. A senior EU intelligence official waited in the small glass conference room. "Miss Jolie," he said, sliding a folder toward her. "Did you or did you not authorize the emotional credibility campaign titled Haloglass during your time with the United Nations?" She didn't touch the folder. "Under protest, I advised on parts of it," she said. "But I also tried to stop it. You won't find that in the official notes." And the subject known as Markle. Angelina hesitated for the first time that day. She was meant to be a mirror, she said, counterweight. But she saw too much. The man frowned. "She now holds a copy of your redacted Geneva file." Angelina closed her eyes. "Then we're past the point of control." Meanwhile, inside the archive room, Meghan sat before a large screen. Documents flashed by, records of strategy meetings, email trails. A digital folder marked Emotional Contagion Models, Public Figures. She clicked it. Inside her, Faye stared back at her from an image captured during her 2019 Nairobi trip. She wasn't giving a speech or shaking hands. She was standing alone, watching, listening. And in the metadata of that file, subject behavior deviated from model. Recommend reclassification. Risk status uncontrolled. Meghan slowly leaned back in her chair. They hadn't just monitored her, they had tried to mold her. But she had broken through. She turned to the diplomat, monitoring the session. "I want a copy of this," she said. He nodded, visibly shaken. "You'll need to sign an international disclosure protocol." She signed it without blinking. As she left the room, her phone buzzed. A message. No number. "She's in The Hague. They'll offer her a deal. You have one chance to speak first." Meghan looked up at the massive ceiling, the emblem of international justice above her. It was time for the world to hear the truth from her lips, not theirs. The marble halls of The Hague glowed under soft security lights as dusk settled over the Dutch capital. Meghan walked with purpose, her heels echoing against the stone floor. In her hand, she held the encrypted USB drive from the Halo Glass archive. It was small and unremarkable, but it contained everything: simulations, documents, photos, audio clips of closed-door meetings. It was more than a file. It was proof. She reached the courtyard just as her driver pulled up in a discreet black sedan. As she stepped in, her assistant back in New York buzzed through. "You've got 47 media requests pending. BBC wants an exclusive. The Washington Post is asking if you'll testify in Parliament if called. And this is weird. Someone from Al Jazeera just sent a question through encrypted channels asking if you're planning to go public before Jolie does." Meghan stared out the window as the city blurred past. "Angelina won't go public," she said. "She's too careful. She'll offer partial truths. Maybe frame herself as a reformer, but not a whistleblower. But you. I'm not here to protect a system I never agreed to." The driver took a sharp turn and headed toward the old press center near the embassies. That's where she'd arranged a last-minute meeting with an independent international journalist, someone with reach. But without government strings, a former war correspondent who had exposed weapons trafficking in Syria and survived a car bombing in Lebanon. Trusted, feared, dangerous. His name was Elias Kovacs. Inside the modest conference room, Elias sat with a laptop already open. His dark eyes flicked toward Meghan as she entered, scanning her body language. "You brought it," he said. "I did. And you're sure you want to do this?" "Once it's out there, there's no coming back," she finished for him. "I know." Elias plugged in the drive. The screen filled with text, charts, visual models, behavioral graphs tracking public sentiment across different crisis events. Next to them, photos of celebrities, color-coded by influence range: Jolie, Clooney, DiCaprio, and Meghan. Next to her name, emergent variability use. With caution. He read through it quickly, scanning for keywords. "They plan to trigger collective empathy through controlled narratives," he muttered. "That's not new. But the emotional contagion modeling, that's another level." They were crafting global moods. "And when I found out," Meghan said softly, "they labeled me a threat. My face, my voice. They turned me into a decoy without telling me." Elias looked up, and Jolie. "She helped design it," Meghan said, and then tried to bury it. Back across town, Angelina stood on the balcony of her suite, looking. Down at the street below, a Dutch intelligence officer sat behind her, flipping through the report she had just signed under duress. "You're not the enemy here," he said gently. "But the system you were part of doesn't like." "Loose ends," she replied. He hesitated. "You're aware Markle has accessed the entire Halo Glass archive?" "Yes." "Will she publish?" "She should." The officer blinked. "That's a surprise." Angelina turned around, eyes sharp. "She's right. I went too far. Started with good intentions, but it ended with lies so deep we couldn't even hear the truth anymore." He nodded slowly. "We'll need your statement." "I'll give it." Rain streaked across the windows of the UN satellite building in Geneva. Inside, behind tinted glass and silent halls, a crisis meeting had been called. Representatives from 6 countries sat in a soundproof chamber, surrounded by legal advisors and private intelligence officers. The leaked Halo Glass archive had shaken institutions far deeper than anyone had anticipated. And now, the question wasn't how to contain the story, it was how to survive its consequences. "She didn't just leak files," said one British delegate. "She unraveled a decade of media strategy. The emotional economy is collapsing." "She wasn't the only threat," said a German intelligence rep. "She just lit the match." At the center of the table, the UN ethics liaison spoke calmly. "What Meghan Markle revealed has global legal implications. If world governments shape narratives to provoke motion, particularly during crises, that violates multiple conventions on consent, propaganda, and civil manipulation." "And public trust," someone whispered. The room went silent. Meanwhile, Meghan sat in a nondescript apartment on the outskirts of Brussels, staring at her encrypted phone. Notifications were piling up again. Death threats, support messages, offers from networks, warnings from former allies. Her face was everywhere. She didn't feel powerful. She felt watched. "You've stirred giants," Elias said from across the room. "They don't move quickly, but when they do, people disappear." Meghan's voice was quiet but clear. "Then we keep going. The story's out, but the structure's still standing." He nodded. "We expose more. We name the architects." Across the world, institutions scrambled. Jolie remained silent. But the pressure on her was growing. Paparazzi camped outside her home. Former colleagues began speaking out, some in defense, some not. A former advisor from the UN's communications division leaked emails suggesting Angelina had recommended Meghan be monitored after the Nairobi visit. Another email simply said, "Markle cannot be allowed to go rogue. She doesn't understand the long game." It was too late now. In New York, The View aired a special segment. Joy Behar sat solemnly at the round table. "I want to address what happened," she said. "We didn't know about Halo Glass. We weren't actors in a script. But it seems we were part of it. And we owe our viewers transparency." The clip went viral. By the next day, a wave of resignations had begun. PR firms tied to Halo Glass lost contracts. Lobbyists were subpoenaed. Countries denied involvement even as evidence mounted. The emotional warfare industry was collapsing in real time. And yet, Meghan knew the center still held something worse. The index room. It was a term buried in one of the folders from The Hague. No explanation. No data. Just a title. Index ROOM Sentiment. Control, active operations, falling states. If Halo Glass shaped emotions during disaster, the index room chose where those disasters pointed. It wasn't just about guiding feelings, it was about targeting them. It's about deciding who the world should grieve and who it should forget. Meghan. And Elias traced it to a closed facility outside Warsaw. Formerly a Cold War communications base, it now operated under the front of a behavioral research institute. They would go quietly. No cameras, no press, just them. Before they left, Meghan wrote a final message to Angelina. It was short, you knew, but you didn't stop it. "We still can. Together or not." She hit send. No reply. Hours later, as they drove through the Polish countryside in silence, Elias finally spoke. "Do you think she'd come?" "Okay. She's already there," Meghan said, without hesitation. And she was right. At the edge of the snowy forest, beyond a fence wrapped in surveillance sensors, stood the compound. And near the rear entrance, waiting alone, was Angelina Jolie. She wore no makeup, no entourage, just a long black coat and a face that carried the weight of too many secrets. When Meghan stepped out of the car, their eyes locked. No cameras, no audience. Just history and unfinished war. "You're not here to stop me," Meghan said. "No," Angelina replied. "I'm here to finish what I started." Elias opened the trunk and pulled out the burner laptops. "We go in quiet, we clone what we can, we get out." 10 minutes. Angelina walked beside Meghan as they approached the door. "I didn't know it would go that far," she said softly. "At first we thought we could help people feel again. Care again? Then the models turned weaponized. By the time I realized, I was already too deep. You still had choices. I made the wrong ones." Inside the facility, the halls were cold and metallic. Cameras blinked red overhead, but no alarms sounded. The gate security had been paid off by Elias's sources. They found the index room on sublevel 2. Unmarked, silent. Inside, rows of servers, maps with shifting lights, screens tracking sentiment spikes across global events, wars, protests, celebrity deaths. And on the far wall, a table filled with profiles. Influencers, activists, journalists, each face with a bar graph beneath it. Reach, believability, manipulability. Meghan's photo was still there. But next to hers was Angelina's. Hers glowed. "Red, they marked us," Meghan whispered. "No," Angelina said. "They underestimated us. They moved quickly, copying what they could." Elias hacked the nodes, dumping the archives onto hidden servers. Then a soft sound. Footsteps. Someone else was in the building. Meghan looked at Angelina. "We're not alone." Angelina reached inside her coat. "A small flash drive. This has the final logs. If anything happens, you hand them to the world." Meghan finished. The lights dimmed. They didn't know yet whether they'd make it out. But they knew, without doubt, the world would never be the same again. Outside, the snow had begun to fall harder, swirling in quiet gusts around the polished forest. But inside the index room, the air was sharp with tension. Elias's fingers flew over the keyboard as he siphoned terabytes of encrypted data into mirrored servers. Every beep of the laptop echoed like a countdown. Meghan stood by the exit, eyes locked on the darkened hallway where the sound of distant movement had started again. Not footsteps, now radio static, low murmurs, a flicker of light bouncing off the wall. "They're here," she said calmly. Angelina didn't flinch. She stepped to a console near the back where a touchpad awaited biometric access. "There's a deeper layer. It's the algorithmic selectors, the core code that assigns grief value." "Grief value," Meghan repeated. Every crisis was ranked by potential emotional return. A refugee photo that sparked tears. A bombing that wouldn't. A death that sold papers. Her voice broke for the first time. We helped choose. Who deserved the world's sorrow? Elias glanced up. "You mean, who got headlines, who didn't?" "Exactly." Angelina pressed her palm to the pad. It blinked green. Another panel slid open behind them, revealing rows of black storage drives labeled with dates, project code names, and locations. Meghan moved toward them. "This ... This is everything." The hallway noise grew louder. Elias glanced at his screen. 2 minutes max. Then the upload finishes. "Then we hold them off 2 minutes," Meghan said. Angelina looked at her. "Are you willing to fight for this?" "I already have." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small, compact stun baton, non-lethal, but enough to buy time. Angelina raised an eyebrow. "You've changed." "No," Meghan said. "I just stopped pretending I couldn't see." Suddenly, the door to the index room burst open. 2 guards in dark uniforms stepped in, clearly not expecting resistance. Meghan didn't hesitate. She surged forward, dodging a hand, jabbing the baton into the taller one's ribs. Electricity surged, and he collapsed. The second raised a weapon, but Angelina stepped behind him in a blur, twisting his wrist and slamming him to the floor. Her movements were trained, precise. "UN security," she muttered, "but not loyal to the charter. Probably private contractors." They dragged the 2 unconscious men aside and sealed the door. Okay. The countdown on Elias's laptop hit 0:11. 10 seconds later, the final light blinked green. "Upload complete," he whispered. Meghan exhaled, but Elias didn't close the laptop. He was staring at the screen, transfixed. "There's one more node," he said, "running live simulations. It's been adjusting its predictions in real time since the leak." He turned the laptop to show them a digital map of the world. It was a live heat maps pulsing red and blue across regions, tracking emotion through social media, news cycles, even video comments. "It's adapting," Elias said, "to what we've done. It's learning." Angelina stepped closer. "Can we shut it down?" Elias hesitated. "Yes, but not from here. It's tied to a mirror server inside Geneva. If we kill the local code, it'll just reboot." "Then we go to Geneva," Meghan said. "No," Elias countered. "You go. I'll destroy this hub from the inside. If they find out what we accessed, they'll trace it back to this terminal." He handed Meghan a second drive. "This has a kill switch key. If you reach Geneva and plug it into the core relay, the global model ends. Forever. She looked at him. You won't make it out. He smiled faintly. My story ends here. Anyway, Angelina took the drive, nodded once, and turned toward the emergency exit. We go now. As they climbed the back stairs, the building began to rumble slightly. Below them, Elias had started a purge, protocol frying the local hardware as alarms screamed to life. The backup generator kicked in, but the system was already burning. Outside, a second black car waited. Meghan slid into the front, Angelina into the back. As they pulled away, flames began licking the edges of the compound roof. Neither spoke for several miles. Finally, Meghan broke the silence. Why did you come? The steel door clicked open with a low mechanical sigh, revealing a sterile, humming chamber hidden beneath the United Nations Media Operations Center in Geneva. No signs, no insignias, just rows of servers wrapped in cold light. They're blinking, LEDs pulsing like the quiet heartbeat of a global machine. Meghan stepped inside first. Behind her, Angelina scanned the room, not for threats, but for meaning. These weren't just machines. They were monuments to an idea that emotion could be engineered. That grief, rage, sympathy, even silence, could be shaped like policy. This is the root of it all, Meghan said quietly, where they calibrated the world. At the far end of the chamber, a terminal waited. Elias's kill switch key was ready, but the room wasn't empty. Two figures stepped out from the shadows, dressed not in military gear, but tailored suits. One was a former EU diplomat. The other, a former media mogul turned humanitarian consultant. The older one spoke first. We expected you might find your way here. You always did enjoy being unpredictable, Angelina, said the other, eyes narrowing. And you always enjoyed keeping the world obedient, she replied, voice like steel. The diplomat raised a hand calmly. Before you do anything, you should understand what you're about to destroy. Meghan moved forward. The drive-in. Her hand, I understand perfectly. You built a system to manage pain, then you monetized it, then you buried it. No, the man said. We didn't bury anything. We protected the world from emotional chaos. You think the public can? Process every tragedy, every injustice, without guidance. Angelina spoke this time. You didn't guide them. You manipulated them. You told them who mattered and who didn't. You turned compassion into a quota. There was no other way, he said coldly. If we didn't do it, someone worse would have. Meghan looked at him, eyes hard. Someone worse did, and you became them. She stepped to the terminal. The mogul took one step forward, but Angelina blocked him. You touch her. You don't walk out. He paused, saw the fire in her eyes, and backed down. Meghan inserted the drive. The screen lit up with a sequence of code. Kill switch authorization. Halaglass_core_0. Are you sure? She clicked yes. A pause, then a rising whine. The servers flickered. One by one, the lights dimmed. Codes spilled across the screens like collapsing rain. Years of sentiment day, every public reaction they'd harvested, every emotional manipulation deployed. During war, famine, disaster flashed, scrambled, and vanished. All over the world, link systems began to blink out. NGO dashboards, government PR tools, trending algorithm clusters. The emotional compass that had quietly steered public opinion for over a decade was dying. And just like that, the silence. Machine was gone. In its place, nothing but quiet, not fear, not applause, just silence. The diplomat sighed, lowering his head. You've doomed us to chaos. No, Meghan said. We've set the world free. They turned and left without another word. The diplomats stayed behind, stunned and shrinking in a room now stripped of power. Outside, the early sun touched Geneva's rooftops. Crowds were already gathering. News alerts pinged across devices worldwide. Glass down. The emotional empire has fallen. Truth or terror? What comes after the algorithms? Markle and Jolie, the unlikely duo who crashed the global narrative. On The View, Joy Behar choked up while reading the breaking news. We didn't know how deep it went. And I think we owe Meghan an apology. In London, a former intelligence director was arrested for refusing to testify. In Nairobi, a journalist Meghan once mentored aired a documentary called Feeling Stolen, the decade we didn't cry for ourselves. And at the White House, the press secretary fielded a question she couldn't answer. Who gets to decide how we feel now? Meanwhile, Meghan and Angelina sat on a bench at the edge of Lake Geneva, the wind brushing lightly through the trees. You know, they'll come after us now, Angelina said. Harder than before. I know, Meghan said. Angelina stared. At the water, do you ever wish you'd just played along? Every day, Meghan admitted, but only for a second. Angelina smiled. Same. There was a long pause. No reporters, no cameras. Just the sound of a world slowly waking up from a long synthetic dream. Do you think people will understand what we did? Meghan asked. No, Angelina said, but they'll feel it. Meghan turned to her. And what now? Angelina stood. Now, we let them feel everything. And for once, we don't. Tell them how. They walked away together. And behind them, history began to rewrite itself, this time by human hands.